Let's go over to Ukraine next. Our chief correspondent, Chris Reason's live from Kiev tonight. Chris, good evening from here. What can you tell us about the new wave of the missile attacks and that news tonight, the significant Russian convoy that's approaching the capital?
Yeah, good evening to you, Michael. Look, Russia seems to be stepping up the severity and frequency of its attacks in the last 24 hours. There was a time when they were basically restraining their missile attacks, particularly to early morning and late evening. Well, now it just seems to be coming ad nauseum through day and night. We've seen, particularly in Ukraine's second biggest city of Kharkiv, some vicious assault going on there. It continued again today. The police headquarters in some spectacular footage as the building just collapsed in front of the cameras. But also the Russian airborne are known to have landed on that city 3 o'clock this morning. The numbers increasing there. That is probably the city where they're making most advance. As you know, in the capital, Kiev, they've been struggling because of the volunteer forces and the tenacity of the Ukrainian fighters who are basically keeping this force of Russians back, which has been quite extraordinary to watch. The Russians are making some gains in the south, some concerns there, but for now it looks as though they're holding it. And some good news on that tank front. We've been talking a lot about that in recent days. 64 kilometres of tanks, about as many tanks as would fill the distance from Brisbane to the Gold Coast, making its way down to the capital. It hasn't moved much, though, in the last 24 hours. They've hit some logistical problems, surprisingly. They've had fuel and food issues, not being able to feed the 15,000 estimated troops that are on board that convoy. So right now, the Russians bogged down.
Well, let's see what happens with that in the next few days. But, Chris, where you've been in and around Kiev, you've had a close call and also evacuated.
Yeah, look, well, a close call. We just happened to be filming yesterday at a deserted freeway, 6 lanes, no cars except some wreckage of some Russian vehicles that have been tank bombed, basically, just sitting there on the side. And we noticed this missile fly through the air from right to left. It would have been about 50 metres above us. I've never seen anything quite like it. And the military escort that we privately hire to be with us has been in the military for some 15, 20 years, and he'd said he'd served in Afghanistan, Iraq, hadn't seen it either. A guided, Russia's version of a cruise missile going through the air. It hit its target about 1 kilometre away from us, the TV tower there. Didn't bring it down, but it knocked out TV transmissions throughout the country. Obviously, Russia trying to do its best to stop communications here in this nation. 5 people killed as well. And yes, we were not so much evacuated from the hotel, but evicted from the hotel, along with everybody else today. The clear out of Kiev is quite significant right now. It's a scene happening across the city. We were with the UNHCR and also International Red Cross. All of us had to leave. The hotel wanted it cleared by 7 o'clock this morning because they're clearing the city out, Michael. Yeah. These are tense times. Extremely.
Just, it might help our viewers, Chris. Just tell us, where are you now then and what's happening behind you?
Oh, look, this is fascinating. I mean, you go anywhere around, in fact, around Ukraine, but particularly in Kiev, there are roadblocks like this everywhere. You can imagine your suburb, and at the main intersection of where your suburb might begin, they start sandbagging, bringing concrete barriers and bricks and building what are rudimentary, basic defences against Russian tanks for when they finally get here. They're convinced that they're going to be the target of attack in the next 24 hours. They know that the Russians know where they are and they think that missiles will land here. I can't tell you exactly where. They've asked me not to, but they've dug trenches around the area as well. They're ready for a full-on assault. Now, these guys are all volunteers, Territorial Army. One that I just spoke to very briefly said he was the head of a construction firm. Here he is now, telling us to back off, so we'll come out of there. But he was telling me that he's a construction worker. He's put down his hammers and picked up his gun to basically come here and help out in the fight. He made an interesting point too. He said that Putin had made a determination. He thought he would take over Ukraine in 7 hours, and here we are 7 days later, and they still haven't taken any significant military victory. Right. So, and it's largely because of these guys. Their defence and their extraordinary work holding back Russian forces has been remarkable. How long that lasts, though, we just don't know.
No, he is an embodiment of the resistance that Ukraine's putting up at the moment, and behind you right now, more sandbags arriving to fortify that position as well, by the look of it. Chris, you've been evicted, you and your crew. Please stay safe. Go and find somewhere safe to stay tonight. I know you will, but thank you for that. We'll come back to you tomorrow.